Good morning, Noblesville. It is Thursday morning, throwing a little curveball at you here. June 11th. This is a rescheduled Mental Health Monday on a Thursday, just keeping everybody on their toes, making sure you're all flexible. Appreciate it. We had some technical difficulties earlier this week, but glad to be back and joined once again by my good friend, owner of Pathways to Healing here in Noblesville, Kristen Boice. Kristen, good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Jenson.
Glad to have you here with us as we kind of navigate. We have a lot to talk about today, and really a lot to talk about because there's a lot going on in the world. Chris and I have a lot of questions for you today. I'm certain some of our residents have some questions about how they're dealing with their mental health, maybe some concerns about issues of today. If you have questions as we go through this half an hour together, type them in. Let us know that you're listening. Feel free to say hi if you'd like. If you want to get some frustration out, by all means, let it fly. We're here to open ourselves up to you and share our thoughts and get some great advice on how we deal with our mental health here in the city of Noblesville. So let's get started in the best way we know how to. Kristen, I know you're going to bring us through a breathing exercise. I can tell you yesterday, I had several things going on during the day that were just more of a high intensity conversations, and I was doing a lot of square breathing, and I can tell you I was driving in the car down State Road 32 doing my square breathing yesterday, and so I want to thank you for that and lead us in a great exercise to get us started.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're utilizing it because it is a game changer once you start really practicing it on a regular basis. So we call this square breathing, where you're going to inhale for 4 through your nose, hold for 4, and then slowly exhale through your mouth for 8. You can change the number. Like if 4 feels too long to hold, you can take that down to 2. And then once you get a hang of this, you can go at your own pace. So we're going to start today with feeling our feet on the floor. So you're going to really kind of push into your feet. This helps get you centered and present into this moment here right now. And then we're going to slowly inhale through our nose, and we're going to do this together. So inhale. Hold for 4. Slowly release out your mouth for 8. You really want to feel your body and connect to your body and notice those shoulders dropping. So if you didn't get a really good inhale, you won't get the full benefit of that exhale. So let's try it one more time where we're really getting a nice deep inhale. So inhale through your nose. Hold. Release. Nice job. We're going to do one more. And then if you need to keep going, I invite you to keep going. Keep breathing as you need and as you notice your body calming. So let's do one more together. Inhale. Hold. Release.
That's awesome. And I don't know about you, Kristen, but I know that I've done this many times before. I've had to make a stressful phone call before I've walked into a contentious meeting, and the overall feeling of instant calm has been incredible to me. So this has been, as you said, a game changer for so many. It's certainly been a game changer for me. So thanks for bringing this up today.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're seeing the difference and noticing the difference and really practicing it. And the
Yes.
more you practice it, the more you notice the benefits of it.
And it's great because it's instant satisfaction too. I mean, you can feel it instantly. You feel much better instantly. So let's start our conversation kind of picking up where we talked about last week. And before we talk about it, Kristen, you and I have been very blunt in the fact that we are two white people in Noblesville. Really going to dive in here for a minute talking about race relations. It's something that you cannot avoid by turning on the TV today. There are conversations happening across this country, across the world, about the racial tensions we have in all of our communities. And it's a conversation we've had for a long time, but has gotten very serious recently with several instances of really murder of unarmed Black people in our community and in our communities across the country. And that has sparked a lot of conversation. I know personally, it has sparked a lot of conversation at our house. Our oldest is a 9-year-old. We have had some very serious conversations with him. It has been interesting to view this topic through his eyes. Our kids are some of our most pure of mind, and it's been wonderful to see their thoughts, but it's also been slightly heartbreaking at times as a parent to see them realize the reality of the world that we live in. And at the city of Noblesville, we've undertaken several initiatives on our website and a book exchange program focused on racism and diversity in our community. We've started to look at our policies around diversity and inclusion and how we handle personnel within the city. Our students last week organized a peaceful protest on Wednesday. About probably 250 students did a phenomenal job on our courthouse square marching peacefully. It was wonderful to see our law enforcement officers there come alongside them to protect them. They are really the front line. They're there to protect, and they were there hand in hand with our young folks. Last Sunday, we had nearly 1,000 people at Federal Hill Commons. I was honored to be there and to listen and learn from so many and so many perspectives. But I know this topic has been very difficult for a lot of people, and everyone approaches it differently. And I think one of the best things that, Kristen, I think that you can help us with is, how do we have these conversations, maybe with our friends, with our neighbors, with maybe people we don't know very well, but who are maybe Black individuals that we are around, that we want to ask some questions of, but we may have some real tension or nervousness about doing that. Can we maybe talk a little bit about, I think the best thing that we can do is offer advice on how to talk to those around us around this topic.
Yeah, I think that's an important piece of this. And I'm going to start with one is really centering yourself, because we do feel afraid. We don't want to offend anyone. We don't want to hurt anyone. We don't want to upset anyone. We're afraid we're going to say the wrong thing. And so the first thing we have to do is breathe through that fear. Okay. We have to kind of anchor into some faith over the fear. So we're going to take a deep breath, and we might want to write out what we're curious about. So I was working with a teen yesterday, and she was like, should I call my friend, her friend that is Black, and or people, what should I say? I'm scared. And so I walked her through, first, take a deep breath. Do you love this friend? And she's like, I do. I love this friend. And I'm like, okay, what are you curious about? And so she wrote out I encouraged her to write out, what is it that you're curious about? What is it that you want to say? So you're clear. So sometimes we don't have the luxury of writing this out before we talk with somebody. I encourage this not only for this topic, for a lot of topics. We have a hard time talking about controversial subjects because we have our way of thinking, and we kind of get into this right and wrong conversation instead of softening, opening, and your intention around the conversation. We need to be clear about that. What is your intention? Is it to connect? Is it to understand? Is it to grow? Is it to expand? Or is it to try to change someone's mind? So what is your intention for the conversation? Really important that we are clear on our intention for the conversation. And I welcome and invite everybody to go, let me get curious about it. Am I coming from a growth mindset, which we're teaching all over the Noblesville schools, or am I coming from a fixed mindset? If I'm coming from a fixed mindset, I might need to do a little more individual work before I have that conversation. So I'm not projecting my biases, my conditioning, my programming onto somebody else. When I come from I just want to understand, we're ready. We're more clear to have that conversation. We're coming to understand with that intention, and we're coming with compassion. So we're softening, we're opening. And so we might say something like, I love you, or I really care about you. And do not use the word but. That will feel very, people feel like they got slimed. And it's like taking a giant eraser to what someone just said. So we say, I'm so glad we're friends, or I'm so glad we're colleagues. I really value our time together. And I really want to understand what you're going through. I really want to understand how this has impacted you. And that might be how you started off. That's it. I want to understand. I really do. I care about you. I love you. I want to know what's going on in your heart, how this has impacted you. What do you need from me? What could I do? That is a super important question when we're talking to anybody we care about. What do you need from me? And they might not know. They might say, I don't know. You might say, well, I just want you to know I'm here. I'm here to hold space. I'm here to hold space for any feelings you have. I can handle it. I can take it. You might say something like, I'm here if you just want to vent, if you want to process, I'm here. I might not have any of the answers, which clearly I don't. I'm a white person. I just want you to know I care and I love you. So those are ways to approach the conversation, but it takes a little deconstruction on our end to make sure our intention is pure.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I have learned over the last several weeks is to understand your intention, to your point, but also know that sometimes you have to put the work in yourself. That we need to understand that we always just can't lean on someone who's different to explain it over and over to us why it's different or what they're going through, that we may have to do our own soul searching. And I think that's why some of the reasons why the city of Noblesville, as well as the Noblesville Diversity Coalition, have put out podcasts and TED Talks and books, so you can do some self-discovery before you go into that conversation. And I do think a lot of that self-discovery can help make that conversation more comfortable for you once you have a little bit of a better, firm understanding of where you are coming from. But I've also learned along the way that I think people are very open to questions. People are very certainly open to signs of support, and I think that sometimes, and we've talked a lot about this at our house, that silence is deafening. So being silent isn't always the answer. At least I always tell people who get nervous about going to funerals, you'll be so glad afterwards that you went. You'll never regret going. You may not want to go because it makes you uncomfortable, but you won't regret it. And you won't regret asking someone how they're feeling. You won't regret acknowledging a situation with someone. So for what that is worth, I want to kind of put that out there. I want to talk a little bit about if you get into a conversation like that and it doesn't go the way you want it to, and maybe you've upset someone or somebody doesn't feel open talking to it. How can we kind of process that? How can we step away from that and maybe reset ourselves?
First of all, it's super important to have self-awareness. So to your point of doing your own work, I cannot emphasize this enough. Like, it is crucial. So one of the things is being self-aware enough to know, acknowledge your own shortfalls, acknowledge your own lack, acknowledge your own projections, acknowledge your own biases, acknowledge your own conditioning, acknowledge. Then I can then more freely acknowledge someone else's pain, because this is what this is rooted in. This is rooted in pain. We don't like to talk about pain in our culture. We want to numb it. We want to move away from it. We want to silence it. We want to, you see where I'm going. We're not comfortable really leaning into pain. And when you can get more comfortable with people having pain and saying their pain and voicing their pain and giving meaning to their pain, we then can hold space and we can tolerate, we can handle the pain because we are just holding the space compassionately. We might need to own maybe something we said that hurt another individual, that caused them pain. I'm all about ownership. I am huge into ownership, because when we own it as individuals, our children start to learn to own. We start to say, I am so sorry that I hurt you. And we don't say that wasn't my intention. That is not an apology. So when we go, well, I didn't mean to hurt you. No, we say, I'm so sorry I hurt you. I can imagine that caused you a lot of pain. And I am deeply sorry for that. And then we let the person share, yeah, that did hurt. And yeah, that really was hurtful to me. And we go, oh my gosh, I can totally see that. Thank you for sharing that with me. Thank you for telling me. When we can acknowledge our own shortfalls, when we can acknowledge someone else's pain, we heal. We feel more connected. We feel safer. So trauma a lot of times takes us out of feeling safe and takes us into self-protection, takes us into defense mechanisms to try to keep us safe. And so a lot of times what's happening is someone feels there's a lot of pain underneath that hasn't been tended to. And so when we can simply take ownership for our part, we can acknowledge someone else's pain, we can heal, repair, and connect.
That's very important. I think, like I said, I've done a lot of self-reflecting on myself the last couple of days. I imagine there's been a lot of people across the country that have seen what is going on, and you start to grapple with yourself about the way you feel, so again, I would point a lot of people to the resources that are out there. The Noblesville Diversity Coalition has done an incredible job Their Facebook page is chock full of resources. Here at the City of Noblesville website as well. Do your research, spend some time, understand where you're coming from. If we all focus on that, we'll certainly move this ball forward and continue this conversation. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about a topic near and dear to my heart: anxiety. That's a very, very topical thing before that a lot of people are dealing with. And there's a lot to be anxious about right now, whether it be the conversation around racial injustice and racial tension within communities. But we still have this global pandemic going on too, COVID-19. We're getting ready to move tomorrow, 2 days early, into stage 4 of the governor's reopening plan, which is exciting for some, but nerve-wracking and anxious for others. We're going to start to see movie theaters open up, amusement parks, playgrounds open back up starting tomorrow. That may cause some anxiety. We're starting to settle into a summer routine that looks different for everyone, and that may cause some anxiety. And then life in general can just be anxious. Your job loss, family, you name it. I've dealt with anxiety in the past personally, and it can be crippling at times. So let's talk about that overarching topic, Kristen, and advice for how to process that internally and how we can work through anxiety.
First of all, thank you for sharing all that, because anxiety is universal. So some people think I'm in the corner shaking. I'm like, no, it's an internal experience. It's like rooted in fear. So everybody has anxiety to some degree about something in their life. So no one gets out of this for free. We all have it. So it's universal to all of us. First of all, we have to recognize when we're anxious, because otherwise we're functioning from a place of really moving away and trying to mitigate it without connecting to it and calming it. So the first thing I say is we got to take a deep breath and connect and go, what's really going on for me right now? Uncertainty. Okay. We know right now we have uncertainty. We've always had uncertainty. We just didn't know we had uncertainty because we had our routine, we had our normal, and now we're really awakening to everything's uncertain. And so when we can go, okay, let me take a deep breath. Let me ground myself. Let me center myself. That's step number 1 for anxiety. It's essential, because what happens is we loop, we hyperfixate. So we start looping on what if. And when we start looping on what ifs, you're totally in the future. So anxiety is really rooted in the future. Depression's primarily rooted in the past. So we're seeing kind of a mix right now. I'm seeing a mix. I'm seeing some depression. I'm seeing some anxiety. Anxiety is pretty high right now because we don't know what's going to happen with school. We don't know what's going to happen with this virus. We know it's still out there. How do we stay safe, and how do we protect ourselves? We have safety measures we can put into place. The number one thing we need to do with anxiety is breathe, recognize it. The number 2 thing we needed to be doing is mobilize it. So we need to be either writing it out. We need to be going outside. I know, if you can go into a socially distanced or physically distanced space where you can walk, we know that anxiety will start moving out of the body. Anxiety lives in the body. You probably feel it in your nervous system. We have to move it out. Otherwise, it's going to stay trapped in your nervous system and make us sick. So movement, so whether that's writing it out, whether that's talking to somebody, whether that's leaning on somebody in your support system, whether that's getting outside and walking, whether that's playing with your pet, petting your pet. So a lot of mindfulness exercises where we can be fully present with let's take your pet, for example, because everybody feels unconditionally loved for the most part by their pets. When you're with your pet, you're taking in that connection, you're petting, you're noticing the pet's face, you're connecting with the pet, you're talking to the pet, you're petting the pet, you're walking with the pet, you're playing with them. That helps calm our nervous system down, and we're no longer going, oh my gosh, because we're in the present moment. We are now in the present moment. So we have to mobilize that anxiety into something that will center the nervous system. And I'm walking you through those things that will help center the nervous system. Having a support system, I want to circle back to that, is one of the most important things, even if it's one person, to release and talk through and feel their support is huge. And a lot of people don't even know where to start with that. So, a church is one mechanism. We can talk through, there's lots of Facebook groups. Obviously, we're having to do this virtually sometimes. There's 12-step programs. There are, let's say, the knitting clubs, the sewing clubs. If you're interested in a certain topic, you can get on the internet and find people that also like those certain interests that you have. Anxiety is highly contagious. So what I mean by that is if you're a parent and you're not dealing with your anxiety, you're not regulating your anxiety, you're not grounding yourself, you're not working through it, guess who's going to have anxiety? Your children. Shame is also that not enough, that I don't feel good enough. That also is highly contagious. So right now what I'm noticing is because we've been in isolation for so long, the anxiety is higher because we're consuming information and news, which I am recommending to negate from your life. You'll get the gist anyways. You don't need it. You really don't. We think we do. And I'm like, it's the same thing over and over and over. That's why people feel like it's Groundhog's Day. It affects your nervous system. It affects your immunity. So the minute you go into the anxiety, your immunity drops because your nervous system is hijacked. So it really is important that you're limiting your news consumption at this point. I mean, I did this a long time ago. I was like, I'm done with the news. You'll get what you need when you need it. So that's the other thing I'm really recommending right now. And notice your nervous system when you watch the news and when you don't watch the news. So those are a few items. I mean, we could get into more, but that could be immediate for you is the breathing. Go out in nature, listen to the birds. That is huge. We've been taking walks and noticing all the little animals. That's great. Or noticing the sky. We've had some really pretty sunsets, really just sitting out and take that in, listening to music that helps calm your nervous system, meditating. There's a lot of research. The Calm app is great for that, for meditations. There's also a lot on YouTube. So you can type meditations for anxiety. Lots of them out there that help calm your nervous system down.
Well, I love that. And one of the reasons I say calm a lot is because I have my dog with me in the office most of the time. So, but you're right. I actually use Rosie's great when people come in and have to meet with me because it's a nice distraction, something to kind of give a middle person, if you will, something to kind of focus on. So I love that technique. I also love what you said, and it stuck with me, that anxiety is rooted in the future. Depression is rooted in the past. And that's something I would like to explore more with you, maybe over the next couple of weeks. Maybe we can talk a little bit about depression, but that makes perfect sense now that you said it. So that's just very, very interesting to think about and process. So, well, I appreciate your time, Kristen. I want to, before we wrap up here, want to make sure we have an opportunity for you to share some resources for folks that maybe are suffering from anxiety. I mentioned on our side from the resources when it comes to race relations in that conversation, cityofnoblesville.org. The mayor's office has a website focused on diversity and inclusion. We have books that you can come and get from the mayor's office free of charge. Check it out, take it home, read it. There's a kid's book there. Start a conversation with your family. You're welcome to do that at some point in time. Please, bring it back or just pass it along your friend group, but start talking. Start talking about it. Let's have some conversations about it. From the city side, Kristen, if you want to take a minute and talk about some resources, folks that are dealing with anxiety, obviously, I'm sure Pathways to Healing, your website has some great resources as well. But where else could people turn to if they're suffering from depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, domestic abuse, you name it?
Absolutely. The good news is there's so many resources to get help. You're not alone. There are resources. So first of all, then one of the resources that I created because I felt like people needed help in between sessions in therapy is I started a podcast called Close the Chapter. And it has so much information on anxiety, depression, trauma, PTSD, fear, uncertainty, loneliness, grief. I mean, you name the topic, and there's either me talking about the topic or someone on there that's talking about the topic. So that's free, no charge. You can get that on any podcast platform. Couple of things. I think do not underestimate YouTube. So when you type in anxiety, depression, PTSD, YouTube has so much material there that you could spend hours and days listening to things that are helpful. What I really want to welcome you into is noticing your nervous system. So again, meditations, the Calm app, extremely helpful. I also think getting a white noise machine sometimes can help calm that nervous system. Rocking in a rocking chair. I know this sounds silly, but really swinging on a swing, Those are really helpful to your nervous system. So I'm going to also give you some other resources that are extremely helpful. Prevail. So if you're suffering from any domestic violence or emotional abuse, Prevail is fantastic. They're in Noblesville. They are available 24/7, and their phone number is 317-776-3472. Please call them. They are wonderful. They are here to help you, and they have a lot of resources on their website as well. There's a suicide prevention lifeline. Right now, I am seeing a lot of suicidal ideation, and it's important you get help. Get help immediately. The number is 1-800-273-TALK, which is 8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. And then if you feel more comfortable texting, you don't really want to talk, then I recommend texting 741741. I know that's a lot of numbers. 741741, and you can type connect, you can type support, whatever, and that's 24/7. So if it's 3 a.m. in the morning and you are really struggling, use it. Call that 1-800 number. Call the text. Do not be shy about it. I know it's scary. It can feel very isolating. You can feel very alone, and we can feel afraid to reach out for help. These are people that do care. They want to help. Please call them. The other one is Disaster Distress Helpline, and the number is 1-800-985-5990. And there is a whole list of resources on the state website as well for mental health. There's also Brooks Place for anybody dealing with grief and children. I highly recommend them. And the list goes on. We have a community filled with resources that have been super beneficial to our community and those that really are needing and wanting to feel better. They want to stop being in pain. And this is what I'm telling you. When you deal with the pain, we can move through it and get to the other side. There is hope. And when we feel hopeless, we don't have any answers. We don't know what else to do to mitigate the pain. And we do have resources. There is help out there. So to help you through the pain. So I hope those really are impactful for folks. And if you need more, let me know. I'm happy to share those.
I think to your point, Kristen, you're not alone, Noblesville, or whoever's watching. If you're not from Noblesville, you're not alone. We're here to help you and get some resources. My friend Teresa asked about the link for the podcast on grief. We can go ahead and we'll get that linked up in the Facebook site there to get those podcasts for folks to hear more about Kristen Boice and what she has to say.
No,
which is
not about me. Not about me.
Well, but you get to share it.
That's helpful.
You get to share it, which is great. So, and you're a wonderful person to do it and to give of your time. I think one of the key things I personally have learned is when it comes to anxiety, move. You've got to move. You got to go exercise, go for a walk, get your body moving. It's amazing what natural ways we have for our body to process, but sitting and stewing over it is not helpful. So I think that suggestion on moving has been something that I personally have used a lot. To get outside and get some exercise and get your body moving. So
we can still sit and process
Sure.
and move. So I don't want to make it sound like don't sit and process, because that is important. But moving it through and up and out of your body, whether it's talking, being outside, whatever, is super helpful. Yeah.
Yep, it's great advice. Well, awesome. Well, we will be back on next Monday, barring any technical difficulties. We'll be back for Mental Health Monday, because Mental Health Thursday just doesn't have the same ring to it. So we'll be back Monday at 11. Kristen, again, thank you for your time. You have been so generous moving this entire community to process all that we are dealing with. And who knows what this weekend brings. And we'll be ready to talk about some new topics next Monday at 11. So have a great week, everybody. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.